One of my favorite mushroom snacks and a great kind of versatile recipe for all kinds of mushrooms is mushroom jerky. Great for when you just have a glut of mushrooms you want to use up. I have a number of recipes for mushroom jerky already. I wanted to make a video that will kind of cover all of them. So I'm going to do a mix of wild and cultivated mushrooms here. I'm mixing a few ingredients: Worcestershire, soy sauce, maple syrup, hot sauce, little onion powder, smoked paprika, and I like to add fresh ingredients too here. So I add some fresh ginger and fresh garlic. I kind of hate garlic powder. Obviously, you can use it here if you want, but I think it really adds something. And with the mushrooms, lots of different types that you can use. I'm using a big blend here. Shiitakes, I almost always like to add shiitakes if I'm doing a blend. They're one of the ones you're going to see sold commercially as mushroom jerky because they're one of the best. Boletes here, I have Boletus subserolescens. They get a really nice chewy texture too. Puff balls, these are some Lycoperdon pyriforme. I really like the texture that they get too, and it's a good way to use the really big ones. And you can see what I'm doing here is just cutting the mushrooms into, kind of thick slices and putting them onto a sheet tray with parchment, and you're going to bake them. King oysters here are another really good one. Those I really like in long strips too. Here I just cut them into kind of biased rounds. But lots of different types you can use. Hen of the woods are really good too. And what you're going to do is you're going to bake these. And a lot of recipes are not going to instruct you to do that, but if you put marinade on some of the raw mushrooms, like those puffballs, they're going to break apart. The boletes would too. So I find that I get a better penetration of the marinade and just a more even consistency if I kind of par cook the mushrooms. Hen of the woods actually need to be steamed or boiled for the marinade to even cover them. But you can do the mushrooms raw, especially if they're cultivated. When the mushrooms are wilted, we're just going to put them into a bowl. Then we're going to strain the marinade over them. And this marinade, you can use it up to like 2 or 3 times. Or you can use it to make like mushroom teriyaki sauce if you add a little bit of cornstarch. So you'll have a little bit left over. Okay, so if you want to just marinate raw cultivated mushrooms, you can absolutely do that. And I have some, let's see, king oysters and shiitakes that I was doing that with here, I think like 2 years ago. And you can see the marinade, this is the same proportion. It doesn't really cover them, and you're going to have to wait until they're wilted. I really do like the king oysters cut into strips like I did here, though. So it's just going to take a little bit longer, and I find that I get a better and more even penetration of the marinade if the mushrooms are par cooked. But you can see they will kind of break down eventually, but it does take some time. And the good thing is this is a really forgiving recipe. Okay, so once the marinade is poured on the mushrooms, you're going to let them sit. And this is so forgiving. I've left the mushrooms in the marinade for like up to a week, and they've been okay. I think like 2 to 3 days is kind of optimal. And what that's going to give you is a really rich color. The color is going to improve over time. And if you just wait 24 hours, I also like to press cling film onto the bowl. That's going to help a little bit too. But after 24 hours, they're going to be good, but they won't really get a rich kind of mahogany color. So you can leave them for multiple days. It's okay if you forget about them. They kind of just get better. Although I wouldn't leave them in there for a week. They will get a little bit salty, but it's very forgiving. And when it's time to dry the mushrooms, we're just going to put them on a dehydrator tray. I love my Harvest Made dehydrator. Okay, and at this point, you can tweak the flavor, and this is a really kind of versatile recipe. I like to add fresh herbs sometimes too. So here's some lemon zest and some fresh dill and fresh mint and a little bit of crushed red pepper or hot chili. I'm just going to chop that all up, get it nice and fine, and because there's maple syrup in the marinade, I'm just going to sprinkle that on the mushrooms after they're drained, and it's going to stick to them, and it's going to add a really nice note. So you can do all kinds of different things like that at that point. Now we're going to dehydrate the mushrooms at about 100 Fahrenheit. Then we're going to start a timer for about 5 hours. Now a lot of commercial mushroom jerky is going to be left kind of squishy. And this is kind of where personal preference comes into play. You're also going to want to rotate the mushrooms as they're drying. That's just going to give you a more even texture. It's not the end of the world if you don't do that, but you don't want to over dry them because they could get crisp and brittle. You want them kind of leathery. So anywhere from like 4 to 7 hours or like 5 to 7 hours is going to be the sweet spot. That's a king oyster. You can see the bolete there will probably need a little more time, but commercial mushroom jerky is often left kind of squishy like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you like the texture like that, go for it. There's a puffball, they kind of dry pretty quick. You can see it's starting to crack there. So I took those out. So these I left in for like 3 days. These are king oyster strips. These I think are kind of my ideal texture where they're pliable and kind of leathery and I can tear them if I want. They're not squishy at all. These are one of the best jerky mushrooms. Shiitakes too are really good. You can cut them in half if you want more of a chewy piece, but that's kind of the texture you're looking for. Okay, hen of the woods. I mentioned another classic one, but that's kind of the texture I like. You can adjust it to what you prefer. Basic mushroom jerky, lots of different ways that you can make it, lots of different ways you can play with the flavors. Recipes on my website. Thanks for watching.